Hi, my name is Araya, and I'm going to be giving you 10 tips to get your handstands fast. These tips are for absolute beginners, so no worries if you've never been inverted before. Tip number 1, always warm up before practicing. I know it's not the most glamorous thing, but the fastest way to guarantee zero progress is injury. Make sure your whole body is warm, but especially your wrists and your shoulders. Tip number 2, know the order of operations for learning handstands. Mobility, strength, balance and coordination, including learning how to fall, and then skill building. I know it's really tempting to want to just jump into the fun part and get upside down, but if you don't have the mobility or the strength to hold yourself up, and if you haven't learned certain techniques and how to fall, then you can very easily get hurt or scare yourself, or a combination of the two, making it a lot harder to learn in the future. Can also develop bad habits by compensating, and those are also very hard to correct in the future. Tip number 3, work on your mobility and your active flexibility. This is really important, and if I give you an extreme example, I think it will make a lot of sense. If this is as far as I can raise my arm and I try to do a handstand, it's probably not going to work very well. Now, the only way for me to actually do that is to compensate by using, let's say, my back or my legs and like arching over to make up for that lack of range of motion. So that's why we want to work on our mobility so we can get to the correct position and stack everything the way it needs to be stacked. Now, working on your shoulder and wrist mobility might seem like the most obvious ones, but you should also be working on the mobility in your hips and in your thoracic spine, because in order to correctly stack a handstand, you need everything to have the correct range of motion. This is why handstands really are a full body exercise. Tip number 4, work on your strength. Now, strength gains can be a little bit slow, but they are always worth it in the long run. I'm pretty sure most of us have been walking on our feet for a long time, and it took a while to develop all of those muscles to do that. We can't just throw all our body weight onto our arms and shoulders and wrists and expect them to just be able to hold us up as if we've been doing it our whole lives. It's very important to take this part seriously to keep ourselves from getting injured, and because it's going to make our handstand progress 100 times smoother. Tip number 5, balance and coordination, and this includes learning how to fall. I do parkour, and I have a parkour program called Edge Movement. Whenever we teach a skill to our students, we also teach them what to do when something goes wrong, aka how to fall, or ukemi. Not only is this important to build your confidence for a move, because if you know how to fall, you're going to feel safer going for it, and therefore you're going to give it your all, rather than holding back, which is when most people get hurt. But it's also building your overall understanding of the move. It's building a 3D map of what the skill's supposed to look like and all the different ways the skill can go. And that's going to make you better at the skill, even if you never fell. In this case, I've seen a lot of people go for a handstand and fall out and land on their head or flat on their back, and it causes them to be scared of really kicking up into their handstand again, and that's obviously going to slow their progress. So if you can learn how to fall, then you can feel safe going for it, knowing you know how to come out of it. The 2 biggest skills to learn to know how to fall safely out of a handstand are pirouettes and cartwheels. You don't need a really fancy handstand pirouette, you just need to be comfortable moving your hands around and having your weight on one hand momentarily. And you don't need the prettiest cartwheel in the world, you just need an understanding of how your body moves into a cartwheel position from different angles and from different positions. Tip number 6, practice against the wall with proper position and form before trying to move into a freestanding handstand. I know it doesn't feel as cool or look as impressive, but it really is important to get your body position correct before you try to do a freestanding handstand. Handstand positioning is very awkward to find. it's really hard to understand what your body's doing when you're upside down. So the biggest thing is going to be filming yourself, really trying to get into this hollow position. And there's so many little tweaks that you can do that can make a handstand harder or easier, like your head position, whether or not you're arched, what your legs are doing. So you want to try to establish a really solid straight body handstand against a wall before we ever try to do it freestanding. Tip number 7, practice slowly weaning yourself off of the wall. There's a lot of really good drills you can do where you can slowly transition your weight from really using the wall to slowly getting more and more of the weight on your hands and balancing out and practicing what happens as you go too far one direction, or maybe you tilt side to side, and really getting all of that solidified before you jump into freestanding. There's more factors involved in freestanding, including how you get up into the handstand. So really having that solid foundation against the wall and slowly building that strength and your ability to balance is going to be a huge help. Tip number 8, I would say you should only start practicing your freestanding handstand when you can hold a really solid handstand against the wall for 1 minute. And I might even take that a little bit further and say the majority of that minute is without your weight on the wall. So you're basically doing a freestanding handstand next to the wall. And when I say a 1 minute handstand, I mean a 1 minute handstand with no compensation. So you're going to notice as you start holding your handstands for time against the wall that sometimes as you get tired, it's really easy to want to slouch your shoulders, bend your arms, start arching your back, and like lean more of your weight into the wall to kind of help lift you up. So I would say if any of those things are starting to happen, stop your time and come down. It's good to come down at that point so you don't start building habits and compensations, and you really are building the strength that you need in your shoulders to be in that locked out position and that stacked position. Tip number 9, I would recommend practicing both the kick up into a handstand and the jump into a tuck and eventually straight body handstand at the same time. They're two separate skills and they feel very different, but they will give you a really solid foundation for getting up into a handstand, and they will help you with your handstand presses later in the future. Tip number 10, I would recommend getting a really solid straight body handstand before you start playing with different handstand shapes. Really, a straight body handstand is a harder handstand than like a stag handstand or a split handstand or even a straddle handstand. Because you can use a lot of your other body parts to kind of counterbalance yourself and play with arching your back and where your head position is at, and they're easier than a straight body handstand. But if you really don't understand the stacking of a straight body handstand or the mechanics of it, then it's very easy to build bad habits. You might get to the point where like, I don't know how to balance without using my back. So even though it's harder, I think if you build a solid hollow body handstand, your foundation is going to be so good that you will be able to work on any handstand position you want from there. This will make all of your other handstand practice in the future much easier. So make sure to like, subscribe, and comment. That'll help me continue to offer as much information as I can on here for free, so that I can help you guys reach your goals. Thanks for watching.